Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Brian with the Unstuck sessions. Let me go ahead and get Instagram on live here. So give me 1 second. Let me get Instagram up and running. As usual, per the norm, in recent months, been having internet issues. So on today's episode, this is kind of an impromptu um, live stream. I was planning on just doing this as a video, but I'm really more comfortable in a live stream format. But what I'm going to talk about is the workflow I have for one of my clients and how I'm using LinkedIn newsletters to help create opportunities for one of my clients that's not necessarily tied to having a massive audience and doing all the other stuff that normally you get monetized for. And so that's what I have on today's episode. Stay tuned and hopefully you can get some jewels from this. I'm gonna go ahead and roll this intro, then we're gonna get into the meat of the matter. What's up, y'all? For those that don't know, my name is Brian. I have a marketing agency that I'm pivoting into more of a DIY marketing agency, which means I provide tools and resources for so that businesses can learn how to do their own marketing. Or if you're running a personal brand, you can do your own marketing. And so that's the Unstuck marketing department. My marketing agency is I Sell Words. Okay, so I'm gonna just condense the nonsense and jump into this. Um, I know that there's a ton of people out here who are on the content wheel. What that means is when I say the content wheel, that means that you've heard somewhere that the key to growing your business and or your personal brand is creating content, and that's true. You can open a lot of doors by doing that. I've done a recent live stream talking about letting content really be an extension of your resume, and I 100% believe that. Um, but there has to be some kind of system behind it. There has to be some kind of strategy. Otherwise, you're just going to be creating content for the love of the game. And that's not a bad thing if you're trying to get used to the concept of talking directly to camera, talking directly to an audience. That's fine. But once you start getting into the meat of things, you're going to want to start seeing some returns for your time investment. So that's where this episode comes in. And there's two aspects I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to show you my workflow for how I repurpose content for one of my clients, and also show you how we're using LinkedIn newsletters to create opportunities and secure future bags for that client. So stay tuned if that's the kind of stuff you want to hear. I'm pulling up my notes here, so bear with me. Live TV, y'all. Again, this entire thing is about giving you opportunity to put money in your pocket. And I think a lot of times when we utilize social media, we utilize it for, diversion and all this other stuff. There are opportunities out here to utilize social media to benefit you and your business and career. I know it can also derail your career and your business ventures, but what I'm trying to do is teach y'all how to use this as something in your toolbox so that you can grow. Okay. So, we're going to jump into it. I'm pulling back the curtain on this thing because I feel like it's important for y'all to understand what I do. Um, and it's a service I offer through my marketing agency, and it's something that just kind of came up on the fly, but we found a lot of benefit in it, so I want to open it up to other people if they're interested. So I'm pulling back the curtain on how we're growing the Level Up podcast. It's called the Level Up Podcast, the Career Playbook. It's based out of Silicon Valley. It's hosted by my friend Brian Bell. He interviews a lot of movers and shakers on C-suite level and movers and shakers in Silicon Valley so that he can get information to share with his audience on how you manage your career in Silicon Valley from a C-suite perspective, from an HR perspective. And there's a ton of really good insights in there. And so, and I know people consume media different ways. And so the way I normally do it is I have longs and shorts. We have the full podcast that we have, and then we have our shorter form content that we use to drive traffic. YouTube is really prioritizing shorts for better or worse. And it's kind of a monkey see monkey do kind of thing in social media world. So where on Instagram and Facebook they're using reels. TikTok, you have your TikTok videos, and then YouTube is really prioritizing short form content. And even LinkedIn is leaning into the short form content thing. And so we utilize that as a way to give people snippets of the podcast and then lead them back into listening to the whole thing. So, but once we started this, and there's a little story behind it because we had a conversation. Brian asked me to kind of help produce elements of the podcast. And so um, I said, okay, let's do it. And as we started, the services started taking shape, and I started seeing opportunities for us to grow this thing. Hold on one second. We started seeing new opportunities popping up for us to grow this thing. And always really super excited to see, new ways to apply things. Okay. In that we saw, excuse me, in that we saw an opportunity to really grow on LinkedIn and utilize LinkedIn as a service that, because we were already present on it. And let's be real, I was already present on LinkedIn. That wasn't a big deal for me. But I wanted to really maximize what we were doing with LinkedIn. And we saw opportunity there where I could utilize the clips from that podcast and drive the audience, but at the same time create opportunities for Brian, to advance his career as well. Because it really turned into a matter of, okay, so how do we get the most bang for our buck with this one? All right. All right. So I've said all that to say this. We really want to I'm big about creating it once and utilizing it forever. That's kind of how I operate. I think that there's a tremendous value in that. And I think it's more conducive for business owners because a lot of times, if you're not a full time content creator and this is not what you do on a daily basis, it can be really difficult. You know, it, it can be really difficult to fit this into your schedule. And so my big thing is let's create it one time, let's invest the time up front, create it once, and then repurpose it for as long as we possibly can. Okay. So that's what we got. All right. So our secret growth weapon, was I wanted to try out newsletters on LinkedIn. Um, and I'll tell you exactly how I build those things out. But realistically, what the newsletters do when we post a new episode, um, I take all the notes, like I get a transcript from that. I'm gonna explain the process in depth, but basically, I take the transcript and repurpose it into a newsletter. In that newsletter, it has all the key bullet points and tips from the guests. And it was something I just wanted to try out, but really that's been the most successful part of the podcast. We built a huge audience, on LinkedIn through that newsletter, and we have not been doing it that long. But every time the newsletter drops, the analytics on LinkedIn spike because, and we can also see who's reading this newsletter. And so most of the people that read this newsletter are C-suite. If you don't know what C-suite is, that is CEO, CFO, COO, the leadership part of these major corporations. They are primarily the ones reading this, and then it kind of trickles down. Based on just doing the newsletter, when I talked to Brian, because we're also trying to, go through the regular monetization route of building out the audience, getting 1,000 watch hours on YouTube and all that other stuff. But what he's been seeing on his end is more people reaching out with potential job offers, freelance offers. People want him to mentor them, and all these this abundance of opportunities that come from putting the podcast on LinkedIn and also having the newsletter to augment that. And so I want to show y'all what my back end looks like on this one and how we normally do this. So first things first, let's talk about the importance of repurposing. Most creators waste their content. They create it once, and then once it's posted, it's a big sprint to get away from it. It seems like, and they want to move on to the next piece of content. And I understand that. I'm not big on editing videos or looking at myself. It can be really uncomfortable. but it's a necessary part of the game. But a lot of times, business owners and stuff, they're already uncomfortable in front of the camera, and they don't necessarily want to go back and rewatch their footage. That's why a lot of times people record stuff. They have a whole bunch of videos recorded that they never posted because they haven't edited them yet. And so for them, it's a struggle enough to get it posted. And once it posts, it kind of dies and then they move on. Um, it's a losing game because you're stuck on a hamster wheel. Basically, what you're doing is you've decided I'm going to be a content creator without actually being a content creator. And realistically, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to have to constantly feed the monster. With fresh content every single time and come up with new ideas and go through that whole process that you're super uncomfortable with over and over and over again. I'm offering a different way. My advice is you pick a certain day where you're recording and you just batch all of your content, and then we find ways to redistribute it. I'll tell you what I normally use to do it. There's a couple of different tools. There's one that makes it really easy, but you lose a little bit of flexibility. And so I'll run that down to you. Repurposing is leverage. You can multiply one piece of work into multiple platforms and touch points for different audiences. Each social media platform has a different audience attached to it. And by creating content that's unique to each specific platform, or repurposing content, and you say, hey, this will go good over here, but it may not go as well over here, you kind of get a chance to cover all your bases. And you also get a chance to test out what platforms you get a bigger response on, because we have whittled down platforms and said, okay, we get a great response over here, but the response over here ain't so great. And we've kind of whittled it down. Right now, our core platforms are going to be Facebook, because we're already monetized on Facebook for that podcast. Facebook, TikTok, we're kind of testing it. We're seeing where the audience goes with it. YouTube is going to be our hub, just because we could store, basically is kind of an online storage for us. And plus it exposes us to the largest audience possible. And the one that's really been responsive is LinkedIn. Okay. And more on that in a moment. Okay. So we multiply that piece of work and use multiple platforms and touch multiple audiences. And some audiences are going to respond to some videos better than others. Okay. So specifically LinkedIn, I said that was a really responsive platform. What we did on LinkedIn was I saw that there's the newsletter function. Okay. The newsletter turns passive followers into really engaged readers. And they get pushed directly to your subscribers. So whenever we drop a new episode of the podcast, we drop a new episode of the newsletter. And the newsletter essentially announces the new episode of the podcast. It gives a more detailed breakdown than you can put into a LinkedIn post. We normally tag the person that we've interviewed, tag whatever ventures they want us to tag in it, and away we go. And we have repeat readers from that, and it helps us build an audience where, if we were just posting the podcast by itself, it would have been harder to grow that audience, because once the video passes, it's gone. But the newsletter has stickiness because it has career insights and it has tips and suggestions for people that are dealing with the day-to-day of Silicon Valley. And so there's a stickiness to it. When I say stickiness, they come back to it. There was the idea back in the days, well, not even back in the days, when I first started this, I was a big proponent of having an email newsletter and a printed newsletter. The printed newsletter include puzzles, recipes, the whole nine, so it has stickiness, so people have to keep coming back to it. And that's kind of what the online version of the LinkedIn newsletter does for us. Okay, so it's not just about views, and I want y'all to understand this. Our YouTube numbers are small. They're tiny, they're minuscule. Our LinkedIn numbers are pretty modest. Facebook audience is pretty good, but our YouTube numbers are small. We don't really care about that. That audience is growing slowly, and people are getting more responsive with each successive episode that we post. There are other ways to monetize video content besides AdSense. And that's what a lot of people do. They use ad revenue. They look, that's what because they see the big time YouTubers doing that. It's a lot of ad revenue. And they have that ability to utilize to collect that ad revenue because their audiences are so massive. Well, the thing is, a lot of times those massive audiences are kind of drawn in by the lowest common denominator. Um, that's why Mr. Beast has this big audience, because a lot of the content is really surface level and it's entertainment content, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it. But when you're out here doing this thing on social media and growing your audience as a professional, um, you have to balance out, like, do you really want to be um, where you are constantly having to entertain your audience in order to inform them? Or do you want an audience that is in line with being informed? They're tuning in to learn something from you. You got to look at that. And so we were like, all right, so we're informing this audience. We're not necessarily about entertainment, because we don't want the entertainment, because the entertainment audience, they drift. And if they're not entertained, they're off of you real quick. As opposed to the audience that's looking to pick up something and learn, they have more intent. They want to stick around and learn. That's just an aside. Okay. But the opportunities come from LinkedIn. And this is what it has. It's brought us C-suite readers, decision makers. And these are the people that open doors. These are the people that, hey, this guy looks like he might be a good fit. Let's have our recruiter give them a shout. And that's kind of where we're at right now with it. It's a really fun time, because right now, we're kind of in a season of too many opportunities, and too many directions that we can go with the career playbook. There's so many options that we can take, that we have meetings to discuss. Hey, these are all the options that we came up with this week. What business model do you want to build out of this? And um, it's not magic. It wasn't an accident. It came from us strategically posting content consistently and then adding that newsletter piece to give it that extra punch. Okay. So the idea is, we're already doing the work, repurposing the podcast plus creating newsletters, make sure that work pays off. Okay. So do y'all want to hear, because I'm moving on to this next part, and I know my audience is dropping in and out. But the next piece of this is, I'll tell you kind of the workflow of how we do this thing. So if you're ready, let's rock and roll. Okay. So here's how it starts. Normally, I may be at home doing, whatever. And Brian, the host, will hit me up and say, hey, dropped a new episode. It's private on YouTube. Do your thing. And so the first thing I do is I take that video, and the tool I use is my main video editor, but it also has a lot of other uses. It's called Descript. And the link's in the show notes if you're interested. But basically, it's a full-featured video editor. And yeah, it's not as powerful as Adobe or DaVinci Resolve or anything, but it brings ease of use, because for editing the video is as simple as editing the transcript. And I know Premiere Pro has that feature now, but it's not as good as the way Descript does it, because Descript, you can extract the video, you can extract the audio, you can extract just the transcript and all the other stuff. Plus, it has onboard AI where you could tell it to edit out all your ums and ahs and your filler words. You could tell it to edit for clarity, so that it can cut off all the extemporaneous commentary that you have, and really laser focus it down for, to make sure that people can view it. It has a lot of other features, and they're constantly adding stuff to it. It's worth the money I pay for it, and it saves me so much time. But what I do is I will take that video, once he posts it on, once he records it and posts it on YouTube, I take that video and drop it into Descript and let Descript do its thing. Normally, Descript will try to identify the speakers, or ask you how many speakers there are, so it can label the speakers. And it also helps with some of the AI stuff on the back end, like when it's creating, because it'll create your show notes, it'll create timestamps and all the other stuff. And so I drop it in there. I drop the video in there, and I extract the transcript. Okay. And it'll give me a like a Word doc file that I can utilize. And I go through the transcript. And as I'm going through the transcript, I'm actually typing my notes on that transcript or whatnot. Um, and saying, hey, this is a good insight here, and really punching it up. I treat it like something I can punch up. Okay. Once I have the transcript reviewed and I'm looking at it and I'm getting ready to rock and roll, I'm ready to take it to the next step. Um, I go back to the video because I want to do this all while I'm in the same program. I open up the script and I use the script to edit the video. If it's longer than an hour, I use the script to whittle that video down to about 59 minutes and 59 seconds. The reason for that is I could take it to TikTok and post a video in its entirety. And so I have the benefit of posting the entire video without having to take the TikTok audience and take them off platform to go view the video on YouTube. It's really important for me and for our flow. So I'm able to post the video on TikTok in its entirety. LinkedIn does not allow for us. It only gives us a 10-minute cap at this point. I don't know if it's a feature you got to unlock or whatnot, but right now videos can't be really longer than 10 minutes on LinkedIn. They might change things. This is not going to be forever, but that's how it is right now. Okay. But yeah, so I get it ready for, I have the video ready for TikTok. So I'm ready for distribution when I'm ready to do that. Okay. Make all my notes on the transcript. Put my key takeaways, strong quotes, main themes, career growth strategies. I'm just getting everything out. I'm pulling all the signal out of the noise. Okay. And then I actually do go over to, I use Manus. I used to use Chat GPT, but I like Manus. Is a lot more thorough and it's good. It's better at kind of interpreting my notes and helps me really format it and gives me an outline that I can use to rewrite this newsletter and start giving me some drafts of the newsletter. And so I don't use Chat GPT. You can, you can use their free tier. I do use Manus because Manus does a little bit more. That's just my personal opinion, and I think it writes a little bit better than Chat GPT. It's words. When it writes, I can edit them and make them my own. And a lot of times, when I have so much in those transcripts, it's basically just rewording my words and reorganizing them into a coherent newsletter. Okay. So once I get all that stuff set up, it's never copy and pasted. Like it's never just I drop it in Manus and it just spits it out. I've done a lot of work on the back end of my Manus account with giving it samples of my writing and how I want it. And so it can recognize my writing pretty well and mimic some of it. But then I'm still editing and editing and editing and editing once I get it done because the newsletter is the high quality piece of content and I really want it to go off well. And I don't want it just to be AI slop. Okay. So once I have the newsletter formatted the way I want, it's the heart of the system. It's not just a recap. It pulls all the best information out and turns it into something that people want to read. So even if they don't listen to the episode, they can read the newsletter and have a good idea of what was said. Okay. So when you post a newsletter on LinkedIn, and when I'm getting to the point, I'm gearing up and getting ready to actually release this podcast. And the podcast is YouTube based, so it's mostly video. I'm ready to release and distribute this podcast. It's we're setting up our times and everything. First things first, I create a new edition of the newsletter, and I put my finalized newsletter after I send it over to Brian to take a look at it. I put my finalized newsletter on LinkedIn. And then I make sure I tag our guests and tag whatever business they're tied to. Because now I get to, once I tag them and it goes live, I get to leverage their audience as well. Okay. So newsletter's up, everybody's tagged, everything's in there, it's approved, ready to go. When you click the button to go to next, it's going to ask you for a LinkedIn post. Now, the LinkedIn post, I've already halfway written through my notes. That one is kind of I use Manus for that as well. And I help it draft that LinkedIn post. That's really the announcement of the new podcast. And in that announcement, I put the link, the direct link for the podcast. I also do that in the newsletter as well. So I'm covering all my bases. but you can't post a LinkedIn article without some kind of LinkedIn post to comment to accompany it. And so I made that LinkedIn post the announcement of the new episode of the show. And when they click on that link, they automatically get taken to the newsletter so they can see it. And then from there, they can click on the link and go to the show. Okay. So the LinkedIn post has basically some key aspects. It has the hook, has you know, a couple of things that we talked about in the podcast, and then a call to action. With the call to action is typically click here to watch more. And I always tag the guests in their business to expand the reach. I just told you that. Okay. I schedule the newsletter and LinkedIn post early morning. Whatever the local time is, since it's a Silicon Valley thing, I try to schedule it for Silicon Valley time. So I try to have it go live around between 7:30 and 9 a.m. I always set the YouTube video to be public 15 minutes before that LinkedIn newsletter, LinkedIn post goes live, just so that when that video's up and running and already ready, so that they don't run into any kind of weird shenanigans where the video's not ready and they get an error message, because I don't want to do that. Facebook and TikTok, I schedule those around the same time as well. Okay. And then once it's live, we monitor LinkedIn. We see who's responding. If there's anything in there, Brian's pretty good about responding to people as they come on. I know it sounds weird that I'm saying Brian and my name is Brian, but we're both named Brian. But once it's live, we kind of monitor LinkedIn, because that's really our hub, and that's where a lot of the action comes from. And so he comments and replies to people. And the guests normally will say a few words and we'll thank the guests and stuff like that. And so really that's the machine. And we duplicate that the video process for each site. So I do post a version of the video directly on Facebook, where Facebook has its own version of the podcast in its entirety, and TikTok has a full version of the podcast in its entirety, and then YouTube has a full version. Okay. So those are the three platforms. You do not have to do that. You can actually pick one platform and run with it. Okay. And that's how we roll. That's how it gets launched. And then when it comes to the repurposing thing, I'll get to that in a little bit. Because we make shorter form clips out of the larger podcast and redistribute them to all platforms. And I'm gonna tell you, I can do it manually if I want a little bit more oomph to it, but there's a tool that I can use that speeds up the process as well. And I would suggest that you use the tool that I use to do it. It's worth the money. There's an investment. It's worth the money. Okay, so here's the cool part. The cool part is we're not just getting random views. We're bringing in an audience of high intention decision makers. So what does that mean? That means that people that are looking to make some kind of decision. And sorry, y'all, if you've commented or anything, I may not have seen you, because I'm just going here. That these are people that make decisions in your company and have the ability to ask for more. And so the newsletter has cultivated an audience of people that want to reach out for services. And so from the newsletter, Brian gets mentorship requests, freelance opportunities, job offers, partnerships, new guests. Right now, we're in a season of we have so many different possible avenues that we can take. We're having a hard time deciding exactly what the business model that we're going to utilize is, because all of them can be successful. We just got to pick the one that makes sense for us. That is a very, very good place to be. It's scary, but it's also a good place to be. So we have an abundance of opportunities. We have to pick the right vehicle right now. And all of them will drive. All of them have mileage. All of them can go. It's just figuring out what one we want to deploy and roll with. But just based on the LinkedIn newsletter, and all this stuff comes from the LinkedIn newsletter, y'all, and the LinkedIn post, and us constantly posting clips of the podcast to LinkedIn. That's where a lot of these opportunities are coming from. And when we first started out, it was something that he wanted to grow. on YouTube, but we're adjusting and we're recalibrating because the return that we're seeing from the engagement of our LinkedIn audience is really, really, really impressive. Now, if you're interested and you want to sit down and talk about something similar, you know how to reach me. Hit me up at mail@isellwords.net. I'll go ahead and throw this on here. But what we do with that newsletter is, it's an extension of Brian's resume, more or less. And so, as an extension of his resume, it augments it. So when somebody goes to his LinkedIn profile, they're going to see all the clips from the podcast and the newsletter articles, so they can really get a chance to be introduced to the way he thinks and the way he perceives things and the way that he handles things, and they can reach out to him from that. It creates opportunities that weren't there before. And a lot of times I think people are they're looking for they're looking for the solution to be delivered to them, not the pathway to the solution, if that makes sense. um they're looking for the destination and the goal, but they're not necessarily looking for the opportunity vehicle, and the opportunity vehicle to me is more important, because when you have a vehicle for an opportunity, you could take that opportunity any direction you want to. Where you just presented the prize at the end of the rainbow, you get it, you can take it or leave it. And so this thing is creating new opportunities. It's kind of an opportunity generating machine. Okay. We're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall. We're choosing which opportunities we want to pursue. I think that's important. We get a chance to pick and choose what vehicle. So we're going to be meeting here over the next couple of weeks to figure out what business model we're going to put underneath this. Okay. Now, if you're wondering how I do all this, and how I run all of it, and do all the other stuff, I do have my toolkits that I use. I decided that instead of done for you marketing services, what I'm doing is I'm taking the tools that I use to write social media posts, newsletters, blog posts, all that other stuff. I templated them out, and I've given you the templates that I use to write everything. That is the Unstuck marketing department. You're going to find the link in the show notes. Right now we're on Gumroad. I'm probably going to be migrating things over to my site as well. But these are tools that I've had a lot of success with. I'm constantly adding new industries on there. But I do have one that's generic for pretty much any industry, and it's kind of a plug and play thing. Plus, I have a little guide that teaches you some of the basics of direct response marketing as I understand them and as I've used them to help my clients out. So if you're interested in that stuff, it's in the show notes below. I'm not trying to sell it to you or anything, but if you're interested in it and learning how to do it on your own, it's a tool that's available. Okay. So to recap everything, I strongly believe in scheduling out a day and batching all your content, recording all of your stuff. If you're trying to build a personal brand, if you're trying to market your business, if you're just trying to do a passion project and get your voice out on social media, and you want to have your own channel, I suggest that instead of I'm going to record 4 days a week and all this other stuff, I would rather you take a couple of hours and dedicate those hours to creating and recording stuff, whether it's video, whether it's audio, whether it's writing, whatever, and then batch it out throughout the week. Some people will take an entire day to record, and that's what they distribute for the entire month. It's really how you want to do it. What I would not suggest is trying to do this where you're popping on live or you're popping on and recording every single day. That will grind on you really, really fast. Most people are not built for it. I know one person that was able to successfully do that. And he's had a lot of success. He has a whole entire library of stuff that he can go back and repurpose. So it worked out for him. But if you're just starting out and you already have the anxiety about how you're going to show up on camera and how things are going to look and blah, 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 I would just say you pick a time and you just settle on a time and work from there. Okay. I schedule, the way I schedule mine is, since I'm a little, so the way Brian's schedule is, he picks one day a week, and that's the recording day. And we normally will post the full podcast, and then we'll take snippets of the podcast and utilize it to drive traffic to the full podcast. And we sprinkle those all over social media. I owe you a tool. So I use Opus Pro when I don't have time to go clip the podcast, the shorter uh, clips from the podcast myself. Um, Opus Pro is a great tool. I can drop a link from StreamYard, the platform I'm currently using. I can drop it from a link from YouTube, and pretty much any video platform that's out there. You just drop the link, and StreamYard and Opus Pro does the rest. You can customize templates and customize the your brand colors and stuff. And what it will do is it will clip the video and make it a vertical video, or you could do like a traditional 16:9 video, like you're seeing right now. But you can clip the video and you can post it to any social media platform that you can imagine. Um, I can, so if I take this video, and you'll probably see clips of this, I'll take this video, and I drop it into Opus Pro. I could tell it how long I want the videos to go, and I could say, just give me something that's under 3 minutes so it can still be a short on YouTube. It will take this video and give me about 10 to 12 short form clips. It will transcribe them. It'll put the little bouncing text on the bottom so people can read it and stuff. Um, and it takes what it considers the best clips. And I just now I have 10 to 12 clips from one piece of content. It's really amazing. It's a really fast moving tool. Yes, I normally get I can get pretty good quality clips when I clip them manually, and I normally do clip stuff manually, but this is a time saver if you're just starting out. It's one less thing you got to do. I did put my affiliate link for Opus Pro in the show notes as well. There's also an affiliate link for Descript, the video editor I use. So I'm trying to give you access to these tools. They ain't free, but um, I'm a big believer in you pay money to save time. And these things save a lot of time. Opus Pro, when I first started out, was saving me, you know, a good 16 hours of video editing, additional video editing a week. Um, and you can post directly from the platform. So if I want to post stuff on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, what's the other one? Instagram, wherever, YouTube, I can literally go to the video clip that is clipped for me on Opus Pro and say, schedule this to post on this platform. And it'll give you a title that you can adjust. It'll give you a description that you can adjust, and some hashtags. And you just can repost them all without leaving Opus Pro's dashboard. Really, really cool little tool. And if you're looking at repurposing clips, it's worth the investment. It's about 19 bucks a month for their starter pack. I forgot how many minutes of footage you get to clip, but it's a pretty good amount, especially for people that are just starting out. So if you're interested in that, I got that in the show notes as well. But um, I utilize the short form content to drive eyeballs to the longer form stuff. And I utilize it to also capture the best parts and best segments of the podcast so people can it can kind of whet people's appetite for it. Okay. So Brian hits me up, tells me that the video's ready, drop it into the script, extract the transcript. I also trim it down to under an hour so I can repost that video in its entirety on TikTok. I take the transcript, make my notes on it, make a lot of notes on it, take it to Manus. Manus is an AI agent, and I help it rewrite and reformat my words into a newsletter that I can post on LinkedIn. Once I get the LinkedIn, once I get the LinkedIn stuff ready to rock and roll, hold on one second, y'all. My All right. So to recap, sorry, I had to answer that. I had to take a quick pause for the cause of myself. So to recap everything I was just saying, newsletter. I post the newsletter. Newsletter always has a post that goes along with it and accompanies it on LinkedIn. I create the posts. And so I've dropped the newsletter in there, and then I create the post that accompanies it. We schedule it to go live on LinkedIn. I make sure the video that I make sure I schedule the video to be ready to go about 15 minutes before the post goes live on LinkedIn. And that's what I do. I mean, I could get into a little bit more detail and a little bit more with the workflow, but realistically, that's what I use. I utilize that piece of content to create multiple pieces of content, and also use it to create opportunities for. Sorry, y'all, I'm having a heck of a time here. Yeah, StreamYard just crashed on me, so is what it is. Whew. Okay, so like I said, I use that newsletter to build opportunities for my clients. The LinkedIn newsletter is getting a ton of traction, and it's not, oh, we're getting ad revenue and stuff like that. It's offers for partnerships, job offers, freelance offers, people wanting to pay for coaching and stuff like that. And so that newsletter does a lot without us having to always constantly have to put out new posts and all the other stuff. That newsletter has legs. People come back and read it because it has value. And people, because in the value, I guess I need to be clear on the value it delivers. The value it delivers is, one, since we interview a lot of the leaders and thought leaders on in and around Silicon Valley in tech and things along those lines. The audience for that wants to see how the thought leaders perceive things in order to advance their careers. Okay. Also, the other heads, because I said we have a lot of C-suite readers. A lot of the C-suite people want to see what other people in their industry are doing or thinking, or how they're navigating issues and whatnot. And that newsletter gives a summation, gives a breakdown of everything that we talk about on those podcasts. Okay. So anyway, what we're going to do is we about to wrap this thing up here, because Chrome is acting a fool right now. It keeps crashing up. And so I will give y'all a quick summary, and then I will check y'all later. So, in summation, I repurpose content all the time for my clients. You record it once, and you could use it for a week, you could use it for a month, depending on how you clip it. I do, if I need to move fast, I use Opus Pro to take my longer form video content and cut it into bite-sized segments that I can use to promote everything. Um, if I have more time, which I normally do, I try to plan it out so I have enough time. I like to create the clips manually, but Opus Pro saves a lot of time. The video editor I use is the script. It can extract transcripts, it can extract audio, can extract video, it can do so much. It's really a versatile tool, and it's really made for people that do podcasts, video podcasts, live streams, and all the other stuff. It's a tool specifically made for them to make it move faster. The video editing is simple as editing the transcript of whatever you put into it. Okay. So, summation: most creators waste content. Repurposing gives leverage, reach, and multiple opportunities. LinkedIn newsletters turn passive followers into engaged readers, and it also reaches decision makers. Okay. My process is get the episode uploaded, receive the uploaded episode, use the script to pull the transcript, um, trim the episode if it's over an hour so I can post it in its entirety on TikTok. review the transcript, pull out key points, quotes, and growth strategies. I do use, and I make my notes on there. I use Manus to help me rewrite all that stuff that I put in there into a coherent newsletter and also into a coherent LinkedIn post, because on LinkedIn you can't really post a newsletter without posting a post. You can't really post a newsletter article without posting a LinkedIn post to go along with it. The newsletter is the core asset. I spend a lot of time on that one. So it's not just a recap. It's actually giving them a breakdown and giving them the insight so that they can read that entire thing and have a full understanding of what happened in the podcast. Uh, like I said, I draft the LinkedIn post using the newsletter. I always tag the guest in their business in the newsletter and in the LinkedIn post. I schedule everything. I make sure the YouTube video goes live 15 minutes before the stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok go live. So if I'm scheduling that video to be public on those other platforms, I always make sure that the YouTube video is live first, so that they're not getting an error message when they click on the link in the newsletter. And then we engage in the LinkedIn. We're in the comments talking and whatnot. The result of it is we get it's a higher level audience with higher intent decision makers, C-suite level executives, the whole nine. And as a result, the host, Brian, he gets a lot of offers for freelance work and jobs and all kinds of other stuff. And right now we're really in a season of figuring out what opportunity we want to pursue. It's not looking for the opportunity, it's picking which one, because there's so many different ones. Okay. I also mentioned that if you're interested, I have made a lot of my templates and tools available. I'm always adding stuff. Links in the show notes. Is the Unstuck marketing department. Right now it's on Gumroad. I'm probably going to be moving it over to my website here shortly. But it's templates, frameworks, and systems that I use. All the links for all the tools I mentioned are in the show notes. Okay. So let's wrap this up. And if you're interested, if you want me to do this for your podcast or your live stream or whatever, hit me up. This is what I do. I'm available. My email is mail@isellwords.net. If you want to learn how to play the LinkedIn game, I'm always down for a consult and teach you how to maximize LinkedIn to master your career opportunities and get a little bit more money in your pocket. Okay. So to wrap this up, the system isn't just about growing audience size. It's creating real career opportunities and real business opportunities. All right. If you're interested or you liked what I talked about, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, because that's what we do on the Unstuck sessions. I really want to make this an asset for people, and not just some another talking head online. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the overlay up. Like, share, subscribe, the whole nine. Just let me know that you're out there and listening. I'm still be creating this kind of content. I've had a couple of things change in my schedule, so I have a little bit more time to do this stuff. But I really, really do want y'all to get a benefit out of this. All right. So that's what I got. I appreciate y'all's time. Be on the lookout for future videos. I'm going to be taking this live stream and chopping it up into something I can post on YouTube, so you can catch an abridged version of it there. And I ain't hard to find. Go ahead and hit me up, hop in the inbox or wherever you're seeing this at if you want to talk. I will talk to y'all later. Thanks for sticking with me through the technical difficulties. We had a couple of them. I'm Brian with Unstuck Sessions. Hit me up and get unstuck with me. Talk to y'all later. Peace. Where is my outro music?